afternoon. I was just thinking when I heard Kezavino Aram talking that maybe she and I should have just done a joint presentation. I mean, I just found her, the conversation that she had with us so inspiring. But I share a lot of what she said. So I'm going to try and spend the next few minutes sharing with you some of my experiences and really, what inspired me to pick this title for what I'm going to share with you. Be the change that you want to be the change that you want to see. It actually comes from Mahatma Gandhi. Now, before I share my experiences, I just thought I should start with a small story. It's an anecdote from my life in Rishi Valley. On a regular basis, I engage with small and marginal farmers in the surrounding areas. And on one such occasion, we were cursing the government and we were saying, what is development and is this the kind of development we want, et cetera, et cetera. So then, in the course of this conversation, I just said, assuming that there are no constraints on resources, what is the one thing that you want which will make you feel that development has taken place the way you want development to take place? So it was a very small group of farmers. It's a group that I work with, have been working with for the last 4 years. So then one of them said, Akka, why don't we just get a community bore well? And so I said, fine, that's fine. So I said, how do we go about getting it? They said, okay, look, we need money. We need about ₹1,00,000. And once we get a community bore well, a lot of us can get livelihood. So I said, why do you want a community bore well? Why don't each of you just request for a separate bore well? They said, well, we need water only once in 2 days for our crops, so why should we invest in a separate bore well? And we don't have that kind of money. So I said, all right, that's fine. And then we started talking about the modalities of how to get the bore well, et cetera, et cetera. And we got carried away. We said, okay, we could take a loan, but then, there are conditions to the loan, et cetera. So finally, the youngest of the lot said, Akka, why don't you organize the loan? So I said, well, I could, but where do I get it from? I don't have that kind of personal money. So then they said, well, you're part of Rishi Valley. You could ask the institution. So I said, I could. And then they said, we have only one request. We want an interest-free loan. I said, you don't want a grant? You don't want a donation? No, we don't want a donation. We want to pay it back. We have self-respect and dignity. We don't want somebody to give us things. I said, oh, that's fine. So anyway, as a group, then we sort of discussed for a little bit longer, and we finally agreed on our roles and responsibilities. They said, it's your job to get us the money, and it's our job to find ways by which we're going to share this water, since it's going to be a community bore well. And also it's our job to figure out how this bore well, which will be on somebody's private property, will become a common property. So in the process of this whole engagement and all of that, I came back to school and I was just thinking, this was really interesting. I was not this privileged, educated person sitting with a group of farmers, going there with a format and saying, this is what you should do. This is how you should go forward. This is how you should use your resources. But instead, collectively, as a group, we sort of identified the problem. We came up with the solution, and I was given my responsibility. So I was part of this collective. And that was a huge learning lesson. It was just one routine morning. But as I was coming back to Rishi Valley, I was just thinking, something really interesting happened right here. Now, through my life, I've been an environmental scientist and environmental consultant for about 15 years before I came to Rishi Valley. There's been one person who has influenced my way of thinking and my approach to environmental activity, and that has been Ken Saro-Wiwa, apart from Mahatma Gandhi. Ken Saro-Wiwa, as many of you know, was this Nigerian activist who was killed when he was trying to fight for the rights of the Ogoni people, his own people, against Shell. And Ken Saro-Wiwa said something which has stayed with me for a very long time. He said, much is given to some of us, and of that much, we must make sure that we give back to those to whom that much has not been given, which is essentially, all of us who are sitting in this room and several other people outside, we are the privileged people. And we must, it is our duty to give back to those who are not so privileged. Now, as Kesavino Aram was saying earlier, the malnutrition, particularly of children below the age of 5, is close to 49%. And to me, that is a crime. That is much worse than sub-Saharan Africa. In India, we consider ourselves one of the fastest growing economies, but we have 49% malnutrition. That is a crime, and if we don't stand up and do something about it, we are all partners in that crime. So I think it's absolutely critical that each one of us figures out our own way, figures out our own path on how to bring about more meaningful development in this country. Now, when we look at some of these problems, not just in India, but the world over, it can be very overwhelming. Whether you're a parent or an educator or a young person today, it can be extremely overwhelming. And we even reach a point where we say, I'm not sure what I can do. I'm just this one small person. But really, the issue here that I'm trying to emphasize, and as what Vino Aram said as well, is we have to find a way to take action. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a scientist, whether you're an artist, whether you're a writer, whether you're an educator, we have to find a way to do this. So I'm going to very quickly try and share with you some of the little things that I have done with my life and I hope to continue doing, which I hope will bring about the change that I want to see. Now, there are 3 principles by which I've tried to live my life. One is that I believe very strongly that there are no coincidences in life. Everything happens for a reason. And also that whenever you really want to do something, you put your mind to it, the universe or whatever else you want to call it, does align itself to make it possible. The second principle that I've lived my life with is that, like I said earlier, be part of the change that you want to see. The change may be within you, the change may be without you, but you have to be part of that change. And the third piece that has really helped me in my life is, grab every opportunity that comes your way. Now, the important thing here is, of course, the opportunity may not turn out or manifest itself in the way you envisaged, but go with the flow and make that opportunity meaningful. So these are the 3 things that I've sort of tried to work with through my life. And I found that it has led me to experiences that have been very profound. And one such experience was my moving to Rishi Valley School. I've been in Rishi Valley School for about 4 years now. I teach environmental science to students of class 11 and 12. And while I came to Rishi Valley to teach, and the reason I wanted to teach after being an environmental consultant for, God knows, more than 15 years, was because during the course of my professional life, as well as during my academic pursuits, and I didn't come from an alternate school. There was nothing alternate about my life. I came from a conventional school, I pursued science, I did my PhD from IIT Bombay, that's as mainstream as you can get. But the point is that you don't have to come from an exclusive place to do things. It's about being sensitive and aware of your environment. It's about looking around and seeing what is happening and taking action in your own way. So the reason I came to Rishi Valley was because I felt that the way we were proceeding, my generation particularly, intellectually knew it, intellectually talked about integrated, holistic, sustainable, the vocabulary was all there, but we somehow didn't practice it. So then I thought that the only way to really do this is to go into education and work with children, work with the next generation. And school education particularly, because school is one of the most formative years of your life. And this is where we create our impressions. This is where our subconscious gets influenced. So I thought, the best thing to do is to get into school and work with children and then see where it takes me. But when I came to Rishi Valley School, one of the things that was offered to me was, would you also please just manage this livelihood outreach program? And mind you, I'd never worked in a rural environment before. So I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I did not know what I was letting myself in for, because this engagement with small and marginal farmers who live around us has probably been one of the biggest educational experiences of my life. I have actually, on the ground, learned what is human rights, what is right to land, what is right to water, what does it really mean on the ground, what does democracy really mean on the ground? You know, not just words which we use intellectually, which we all understand, but what does it really mean? What does it mean when you have right over your land? What is that connection between you and your resources on which you're interdependent? And today my life is inextricably linked with this community. I work with them on many issues. You know, that's not the part that's important. But what's important is what I am learning from them. This is not to say that I want to decry or sort of, say that the formal education that I had was useless. I don't think it was. I think it was part of a journey that I had to take to be where I am today. And so one is, of course, learning so much from the community. You know, that's one lens with which I see the world around me, whether it is issues of, Forest Rights Act, their access to forest, to grasslands and forest, or whether it is their right to practice their own livelihood. We live, in Rishi Valley, we live in a land that's over 1 billion years old. Pastoralists have been on that land, goat herds and shepherds have been on that land for I don't know how many millennia. So it's very old land. Now, to just be able to practice your traditional livelihood, that's important. So this has been my learning process, but also through the eyes of the students who I teach. Most of the environmental projects now, we do it in the community. Through the eyes of the students, the questions that they ask, they appear to be fairly simple questions, but they are looking at very complex situations and asking those simple questions. So through both the eyes of the community and the eyes of the students, my life has changed significantly, and the approach and the attitude that I've had to take on life has really been impacted. And in the process, what has also happened is that my other abiding interest that I've had for a very long time on food security, I have been also able to understand what it really means. What does nutrition really mean? What does malnutrition really mean? How can you work on the land? How can you practice your traditional livelihoods in order to bring this nutrition back into your lives? So therefore, this living on the land, living on the ground, working with communities, and this was not, it didn't require a huge amount of effort. All that it required was for me to look around, see what is happening, find out what are the issues, and through this journey, find out what I can do, how I can play a role here. I can never be a small and marginal farmer. That's not who I am. However, I have the ability to engage with the community. I have the ability to take the case outside of the community. I have the ability to be able to translate all these experiences to other development practitioners, engage with government. That's possible. I can do that. And so why don't I do that in order to facilitate, empower this community to practice its own livelihood? Now, before I sort of wind down and leave you with some thoughts, I thought I should also, since we have a lot of young people in the audience, and one of the requests was that I also share, what is the one thing that we can take away from this, the one or two things that we can take away from this. I must say that periodically, one must take stock of one's life. I do it every 3 to 4 years. And one must ask this question of oneself. What am I doing? What I do, does it really impact anybody? Does it make a difference to anybody's life? It is important to ask this question of oneself every 3 to 4 years. And it's interesting to see what you discover in the process. The second thing is, never hesitate to try something new. We're all afraid. We're so fearful of trying something new, whether it's in academics, whether it's in your work life, whether it's food. There is a huge hesitation to try something new. And if we don't do that, we don't see opportunities. It just doesn't happen. And also always finding mentors, people around you who can be your sounding boards and who can influence your life. It does not have to be somebody who's older than you. It does not have to be somebody who's more educated than you. I mean, my mentors in this phase of my life are the pastoralists and the small and marginal farmers, because they ask me questions. The one question that I keep getting asked is, Akka, you know, why is it that all development has to be defined by you, by people like you? Nobody ever comes and asks us, what is your definition of development and what's your idea of development? So I think it's important to do this. And I think we also have to walk away with another idea that, you know, we are the privileged few in this country. And if we don't stand up and take action, nobody else is going to. And very soon we're going to have rural India that will sort of emerge as an urban slum. So I think it's very, very important, whether you're a student, whether you're an educator, whether you're a parent, to look around, be sensitive, be aware of one's environment. And when I say be aware of one's environment, it's not about nature and natural resources, but it is the people who live there. To be aware and see how we can place ourselves in this space to take action. And finally, I'd like to leave you with these lines from Mahatma Gandhi. You know, when one is in a quandary and one doesn't know what action to take and how to make a change, what he says is, recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you may have seen, and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I really hope that as a collective, as earlier was said, as a collective we can go forward and bring about change and truly be the change that we want to see. Thank you.